I don't know, I could ask Duran, because he's on there. He's on the extended executive committee, and they just had a meeting.
I know they're paying for travel and all that.
We'll stand and say the pledge.
I'll tell you something. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, call meeting to order. First is the agenda approval. Is there anything to add or subtract? If not, I'll ask for,
I'll make the motion to approve.
thank you, Steve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Shar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public input. Seeing there's nobody here for public input, we'll close public input and we go to the consent agenda. There again, any changes or corrections? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve. Thank you, Tom.
I'll second.
Thank you, Shar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, old business. Take her away.
We have Rob from Miller McDonald here to talk about the audit report, so I'll let him go ahead. Hi, Rob.
Oh, you're muted.
We're not hearing you. Try that.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
I get so nervous every time I join one of these calls that it's not going to work. So, hey everyone, and I was looking at this. It looks like this is the same group as last year. Is that correct, Mary?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm Robert Maher. I work at Miller McDonald. The 2024 audit for the Hubbard HRA-EDA. I worked on the audit the year before as well. I came down and presented, so I'm guessing that everybody remembers me. So I'll just kind of go through the audit report. I sent Mary copies of the report. Was everybody able to get one?
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I did give them, and then also the manager, or the letter to the board, gave that to them as well, so they're good.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. And yeah, so I'll just kind of go through, it'll be pretty similar to what we did last year, but on page 2, this is our audit report. And we always point out to people that when you look at the audit, you only see a few pages that have, the Miller McDonald letterhead on them. We always try and remind people that these are your financial statements. And really the important part that everybody is always wondering about is in the first section. It's the second paragraph. And that's where we state, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position. And that's a clean audit opinion. So the audit went well this year. Last year, we had some difficulties, and so I'll point out a couple of things in the audit report and kind of compare and contrast to last year. But really quick, we also always try to remind people, if you were to look at page 3 under the auditor's responsibilities section of the report, that an audit is not us coming in and looking at every single transaction of the organization. We work within materiality, and we do sampling and selections to look at significant transactions. So the first part of that is, if you look at that under the auditor's responsibility section of the letter, our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. And it goes on to say that reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but not absolute. And so we always try and remind people of that when we present the reports. So like I said, the audit went a lot better this year. I was looking at last year's audit report, and in the back of the report, we have an area where we lay out material mistake or significant deficiencies and material weaknesses, and then we also give you a report on Minnesota legal compliance. And last year we had 6 findings that we listed as material weaknesses and significant deficiencies, and this year we only had 2, and they're really it's kind of back to normal is maybe the way I would put it. The findings are that we had a couple of audit adjustments that were material, and then we prepare the financial statements for the organization, which is a really common finding. Not many organizations produce their own audit report. And then last year we had 2 Minnesota legal compliance findings, and this year we didn't have any. So that's really good. So yeah, like I said, I think most last kind of difficult. I went through, as part of our letter that we give you, we also give you a listing of the material audit adjustments. And this year, I believe we only had 2, where last year I want to say that we were maybe closer to, I didn't count them up before I came up here, but I want to say we were over 10 last year. So as we were doing what that really means is as we were doing our audit work, we make adjustments to the trial balance that Mary provides us. And some of those adjustments might be really small, immaterial. At the same time, there might be larger adjustments that get made. And so we provide you a list that shows that, and it's always a good sign when you're not making large material audit adjustments, during the course of the audit. It's very common to find small things that we adjust here and there that are above trivial, but still don't reach what we determine as materiality. That's really common. And so to go from having a lot of material adjustments down to just a few is a good sign. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have. So.
Rob, are you seeing the report within the?
Yes,
Well, okay.
yes.
Robert, this is Ted Van Kempen. We spoke on the phone, I believe.
Yes.
I guess I've read it. Auditor language is kind of foreign to me, but as you just spoke, nothing really jumped out. Appreciate the work that you did last year. Now you're continuing this year. And as I recall, the 2 things are kind of, as I recall, one of them was basically we don't have enough staff, and that's kind of like with a lot of these committees and that I'm on, we've had that same finding in most of the audits. And as you understand, it's hard to hire an unlimited number of people. But I appreciate the work that you did here on this audit. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we, Mary already reached out, and we're going to try and get back on kind of our old schedule that we had. Normally when I had done this audit 3 or 4 years ago, we would normally come down right after tax season to Park Rapids. And so I spoke with Mary, and I think we're planning kind of around the end of May that we're going to come down this year. So I'm guessing I'll probably see you guys again before the end of 2026 to present the 2025 audit report. So, yeah.
Well, the end of May is a beautiful time of year here.
Yes, absolutely.
Does any other board member have any comments, questions?
It's just nice to be getting caught up. Yeah, until the 2025 audit will be
Yeah.
done in a timely manner, so thank you for your work on this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's good timing for us as well after we get done with the busy tax season to kind of, come down and get started on this. So, no, absolutely. We're happy to get back to kind of that schedule as well, so. Mhm.
Alrighty, well, I guess if the board has nothing else, Robert, do you have anything else for us?
No, I just, I always say that, I'm more than happy to speak with anybody from the board, really at any time. So if you're reading this later and you have questions about something, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. We like hearing from them, and we're more, so.
Mary, do we need a motion to accept this so
Yes.
that Robert can put together a final and submit on our behalf?
Yes, and then you'll submit that to the clearinghouse, or we don't have to do a clearinghouse with them? I don't recall. Rob,
Sorry, you were,
do we have to,
I wasn't-
we don't have to do this to the clearinghouse, just to file it, correct? Oh, I think we're getting.
I'm really sorry, you're clearinghouse.
Do we have to submit it to the state?
I don't know that we've ever, so I think it's a component unit submitted. I'd be happy at it, and it could be not aware of, so.
Okay, and I think we're
We
okay.
have it.
All right, we're fine. But yes, we do have to accept as presented.
I'll move to accept.
Thank you, David.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead. You need from me, Mary? Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Rob.
Challenges of technology.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 6B.
Okay, last month we tabled the disposition policy because there was a few questions. Primarily, the most important one was related to the one-year timeline for notification. So I did go ahead and ask the attorney and put what he responded and his recommendation that, no, we really need to do that. It's very clear in statute that that is what we must do. So we really can't remove that requirement and stay in compliance with the statute. While we were having the conversation, I also did talk to him about a couple things, and one was, we had a conversation about some of the property that we have, and most of the verbiage related to the disposition of policy or disposition of property was related to the future development. And so I had asked about what if we have a lot that's for sale that we're pretty sure is not going to be developed? And so how do we handle that? And so he said that we really need to follow that first policy of the advertising. that we have to try and do development, and then if that, do an RFP that would expect development to occur. And then if no one responds, then we can make a decision, because then we followed our due diligence about that. So there's a little bit of a nuance related to, some of the property that we may have that really isn't kin for, or ready for development, or likely not to be developed. And so we have to kind of follow that. And it also does help to clarify sort of when we might want to make properties available.
Would
So-
this be like the lot in Nevis? So I know we talked about selling it to the neighbor next door, but it sounds like technically we have to do an RFP and,
He recommends that. I specifically asked about that property.
Okay.
And said, well, because the language in here is really talking, and the statute talks a lot about making property available for development. And I said, well, it's very unlikely, especially given the scenario here, that there's development. So what does that mean? And he said, no, really, you shouldn't be just accepting an offer in an instance like that, especially when you have reason to believe development won't occur. So he said, what you should do is do an RFP, make the lot available. In this case, we'd say we want single-family housing or whatever it is. And then either that individual can respond and say, no, I'm not gonna do it, or no one responds. And then he said, then you can continue on with the process. So if you find that nobody's interested, then you can go on and just sell it knowing that there's likely not going to be development. So that was one of the other thing that I talked to him about. And then the third thing I talked to him about is, given the likelihood that we're going to develop this industrial park, how do we facilitate the sale of those in a way that doesn't become cumbersome on either the potential purchasers or the HRA? And so in the policies I passed out, he sent them to me very late, but I wanted to add them. On the second page, there's information about a private negotiated sale after marketing the property. So he provided us with an example of how we would go through a process, so we could advertise, and we wouldn't have to use a realtor, that would only be an option. But, so for instance, we at a meeting would talk about the property that we would have available, that we're interested in, doing the sale, and then we could post it online. And then individuals could then respond, and we'd follow the rest of the policy, but we wouldn't have to every time, we could have bulk properties available and posted and make it a little bit more streamlined for individual negotiated sales. So we'd still follow all of the policies with public hearing and all of those kinds of things, but this gives us a way to just sort of bulk advertise, which is really attractive when it comes to the potential of the industrial park, because we don't know if someone would want, to buy the whole thing or just a part of it. And this way it gives us some flexibility to get it out there, get it posted, get it advertised, and then get responses, and then have the conversations about what that actually looks like. So those are the three main points that have changed since the tabling last month. That we have for this policy. And so if there's any concerns, we can wait another month before we approve this. But I think that we've gone, I think it's a good policy, and I think that our attorneys did a really good job of helping us make this so it's a very easy to follow, very straightforward and replicable process, so that everyone has an opportunity and is treated fairly.
if I may speak, I guess just getting this today, I would like to delay the meeting a month.
Sure.
Just so I can get more time to read through it thoroughly and stuff. But just hitting the high spots here, though, I agree, I do think it's gonna be a good policy. And that third-party, private negotiation thing, basically, to me, what that is saying is that we've already made it, we've let people know that it's available. When we haven't necessarily asked for an RFP, we've said, hey, this is available, so now we can go this route.
So, and here's the reason for that. So, and we'll use the industrial park as an example, because that's really the best probably use of this property, or this process, in that we have this land, but we don't necessarily know what development per se is gonna happen. One business may wanna come in and want only 3 acres, and one might want 100 acres. So creating an RFP that provides all of this wide range of opportunity is really difficult. So this process says we have this land available, and we wanna sell it, and this is sort of the parameters around that. So we can still set parameters in that, you know, types of businesses, or, you know, sort of to put some fence posts around it. So we don't have just anything that comes, and then we can actually start marketing it to businesses and showing that we have this property available. They get to the point where they're interested, then we start negotiating. Oh, do you need 2 acres? Do you need 20 acres? Do you need, you know, how do you want it? Where do you need the road? You know, and how is this access? And then we can negotiate, and once we get to a point where it's really fairly straightforward that we have an agreement, then we do the public hearings and all of the other things to do the formal sale. But it gives us some latitude to really market and negotiate and really attract businesses by following this process.
That was, one of my questions is do we put an access road in first, or is that something that can be part of the process?
Well, and it depends on how far with that development you want to go. I think that for the most part, we want to be able to market it as relatively shovel-ready, meaning that we don't necessarily want the business owner to have to figure out how to put in a road. But we may not want to put the full road in. Maybe we want to just guarantee that there's a 9-ton road right up to the edge of or right into the industrial park. And then, depending on how much property they want, may or may not need us to add more road, you know. So I think that we do need to do our due diligence and get it ready so that it's fully accessible. And then, depending on how the business that we, you know, the first business in would help determine what kind of road we would need to access. Are we gonna have any more property left after that negotiation? How do we split it up? And those kinds of things. So it provides us the opportunity to be a little bit amorphous about it, but yet still gives us the opportunity to really follow the correct processes and move forward.
So the property that's north of the railroad tracks has already basically got road access, 500th
Right,
and 374th or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that one might be, well, depending on the business, that might be more desirable at this point.
The other one is, you know, we still have the second 40 acres of the property that we had targeted for housing development. And so we could have a conversation about that. We have 2 options. We can go ahead and do all of the platting and sale again, or we could have a conversation about that we're gonna make this available. If a developer would wanna come in, we could do an RFP that way. So we have, again, this process allows us to have those conversations about what we want to see about the property and then make it available so that we don't necessarily have to do an RFP.
So if we, say we did do an RFP on the county line estates across the road there, what if we didn't like any of the proposals?
We still don't have to take them.
Okay,
If they're deemed not to be in the best interest, and it's not based on price, it's based on what's in the best interest for the taxpayers and the community. So even if you didn't like any of the proposals, there's no reason why we have to take them.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess kind of toward the proposed industrial park area there, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. A lot, infrastructure-wise. If you're gonna try to provide a 9-ton road, you know, a year-round accessible road, there's a lot of hurdles there that need to be overcome before we can even turn the first shovel full of dirt. There's a lot of agreements and there's disagreements about what to do. So I'm just kind of cautious with that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And these two processes aren't meant to be sort of,
No,
you know,
I'm not saying that they
and
run
I agree
side
with-
by
yeah.
side. Yeah.
I agree with you that I'm using that only as an example, and that we're nowhere near ready being able to advertise that in any way, because we still have a lot of discussions. We had with Seth go up and do the public hearing, and we haven't gotten that back on the agenda. So we do need to have conversations about what that looks like, and then, again, all of the things related to that. But this policy puts it in place, so when that happens, we can follow this policy. So they really are separate, and hopefully in a future agenda, we'll get that back on, and we'll have those discussions about what that looks like.
Just thinking about where is the money gonna come from to build that infrastructure? You know, if there isn't grant funding available to help it move forward, I can't see us having the money on hand to go ahead and build 9-ton roads.
Yeah, because we're probably gonna need at least a quarter mile, if not a half mile.
Yeah, depending on what route is chosen.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of headbutting about which way should the road go, where should the primary traffic channel be. So, there's a lot of hurdles there yet.
And most of the time, well, I shouldn't say that. The grant programs that are available generally want a business identified. And so we have a lot of work to do before
Maybe we
we're
could,
ready for that.
Maybe we could throw it on that list that Pete Stauber asked for, you know. It's not quite shovel-ready, because that's what he wanted, but it's a wish list item, you know. For future development, we would like, you know, funding to build a 9-ton route or a 10-ton route, whatever would be deemed necessary.
Is that a congressionally directed? Is he doing congressionally directed
Yeah,
request?
didn't you get that email?
I did not.
I'll forward it to you.
All right.
We have to have a talk.
Okay, and that could be, if we could make the case, that could be. The other one that could be, is the County Light Estates. That could be a request. We were successful in getting, workforce housing, congressionally identified funding. So that's another opportunity that we could potentially look at. So there's a couple projects that we might be able to look at.
He sends a request out every year for
Right.
proposals and.
Yep.
but-
And the housing part, up there, County Line Estates, that might be more ready than the industrial park.
And it's actually a tested model. We don't have the houses started yet, but I would imagine that the one private one is going to start, and I believe 2 of the other houses. So I'm guessing we're gonna have 3 houses started
I think
on
the
the
only,
other
yeah,
side.
the only thing I would consider there would be including, if it was to move forward with some sort of request to upgrade the road for access. Past whatever the business is there on the corner. But improve the road to make
Which
it.
wouldn't be a lot of money compared to, the one
build a
down
new-
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And if we can make, there's 2 things with regard to congressionally directed spending. So there has to be a federal grant program that aligns with the ask that you're making. So we have to identify, and there's only certain ones that actually allow you to ask underneath it. So we have to, the way that it works is we think about what we could use, or what projects we have sort of in the hopper. And then we have to review the grants that are eligible that align with the request. And then make a case to Stauber or whatever representative or senator that our project fits that grant and this is how. and then move it forward. And so it's just a matter of looking at our projects that we have, how do they align with the appropriate grants, and then making the request to, make the case. And we can definitely do that on any of the projects, so.
Board's wishes?
Well, we already tabled this. Do we need another motion to table it again? Did we put a date on the table?
No, we did not. We
So
just
we
said
don't
at a
need another
future.
motion then?
No, we
Okay.
shouldn't. And that's just fine. I realized that it was last minute that we got that other verbiage, but I thought it was important to just bring it forward and keep it on the table so that we can have discussions.
We're gonna take care of it next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I support waiting
Yeah,
Okay,
if you did.
perfect.
alrighty. Then, too many screens opened here. Under new business, schedule meeting, special meeting and public hearing for the sale of HRA-EDA owned property.
So we had had a discussion at the last meeting about the parcel that we are looking at making available for sale. I included with that the RFP based on getting the broker's price opinion. And so this was sent out in order to, while we haven't approved the policy, the policy does fairly clearly identify the steps that we need to take. So in order to be able to advertise the notice of public hearing correctly, we have to have a tentative developer. In order to do that, we would need to meet on the 3rd to select a tentative developer to identify with the requirements to meet, fulfill the public hearing need. So the purpose would be to have a very quick special meeting to just review the RFP responses that we've gotten, select or not a potential developer, and then based on that selection or not selection, then we would schedule a public hearing at that meeting, and it would be all within the window that we're supposed to have, that 10 to 20 day notice.
Have we received anything yet?
Yes,
Oh, good.
we already have one proposal.
Okay.
So on the 3rd,
it's not Walmart.
that's when the
And it's not
MRC
Walmart.
meeting is, at legislative conference, and so you'll want to attend, so we should have time and you'll still be able to get down there in
I
time.
think so, yeah.
Okay.
And I thought we would have it just right after your normal
the regular board
commission.
meeting?
Regular
Okay.
board meeting, it should take about 10 minutes, I would expect. We have one proposal, it's a really straightforward proposal,
The 4th.
so,
No, the MRC, I have written down for,
4th,
Wednesday,
Wednesday,
Thursday,
Thursday, Friday.
oh, why did I put it on the 3rd?
Yeah,
Okay,
5 o'clock.
all right, never mind. Okay,
And I plan on attending MRC too.
okay.
so we would just need a motion to set those two dates. Our tentative, is the special hearing, and then tentatively, the 17th is a public hearing. Only if we have proposals that we accept.
So the 3rd would be the special meeting, and then the
Right.
hearing on this, I'll also move.
Okay. Thank you, Shar.
11 o'clock on the 3rd.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Let's see. One question I had is on the timeline.
11 o'clock.
I know like with the County Line Estates, I read that we gave 30 days, for the RFPs. And here was 18 days. I don't remember why it's a short time period.
There's nothing that dictates how long we have to make it available. And just based on timeline and trying to make it ready for spring construction,
Okay,
so.
okay. I guess in the future, I personally would like to see it, you know, a 30-day. I noticed in the one policy, we were talking 45 days for third-party stuff. You know, I figure some stuff, though, time is of the essence. And sometimes, something like this, I think we might have a little bit more leeway, but we've already got the process started, it's already been posted online, you know, stuff like that. So I just wanted to bring that up. But we've had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
And I'll see about, also for the procedures that we're talking about, some verbiage about timeline and when to do what things, so.
Perfect, thank you.
All right,
Is that 88,000 about what we discussed prior, as far as value-wise? Okay, that's what I was thinking. I thought we were right around that 90.
yeah.
And I was curious how they came up with that. Did they have comparables, or are they just going off of
Yeah, so I
knowledge, or-
have, I did not post it, but I do have the broker's price opinion, and it came with appraisals or current sales. So it actually looks kind of like an appraisal for vacant land.
Okay.
They came up with a price from 85 to 90.
Okay.
The tax value of it is 87.6. So I did 88. I thought that was really an appropriate price based on what they said, so.
Okay,
And they can pay more if they want.
They can.
hopefully.
They're gonna have to pay for some sort of access though, so
Yeah,
that's gonna be.
that's the challenge with that
Yeah.
lot,
Mhm.
which there again, if there was already a road right to it.
It would be worth a lot more, but yeah, that's, we've already had discussions about what that would look like. The city and I have already had discussions about what kind of access might look like. And we're thinking that potentially a cul-de-sac kind of thing, just to extend the road a little bit, and then a turnaround for the trucks, the snowplow drivers would be, and that's gonna be, about $125,000 to put in, so.
And that's off of the one on the north?
Yeah, so it'd be Charles, that's actually a road that goes from Henrietta along the south end of the Walmart parking lot. And
Okay.
then it just dead ends right there. So what would have to happen, or what the city and us have had conversations about, is that road would have to be extended some way. There's really no reason for it, Charles, to go all the way across to Career Path. So but you can't just have this dead end, so that road would need to be extended some. And then to make it convenient for the snowplow drivers, it would be like some sort of a half cul-de-sac or something, so that they could just come, turn right around, and then go back out that road. So that's kind of the discussion that's,
It'd be nice if there was dollars available to have it go east and then north to the Pine Ridge or Pine Crest apartments and stuff. Because I could see that lot, if you had a road going north and south, you could have several businesses in there.
once Finley, which is the road to the north, gets developed, there's a potential where there could be potentially not a road, but maybe some sort of an access where the businesses would sort of line up and both have, there'd be a parking lot that could connect both roads. That a little dangerous in that people would take that as a shortcut all the time, but, so.
Do that with the one next door anyway.
Yeah, everybody does that with L&M Fleet, so I don't know why they wouldn't, so,
I've done it.
yeah.
There's no desire to do the one between Fleet and Charlie's.
Well, I think, I
sure,
don't know
that
that
was-
there's no desire. I think that the challenge is, like everything, is getting the dollars to make it work. That would be a fairly significant assessment for both of those businesses. And unless you get something to offset the cost of that, and then once you get between those two businesses, then it's all HRA. And then we'd have to do the assessment for that. So it'd be great, but I just think that the costs are so prohibitive that at this point, there's really no potential that that's gonna move forward.
I could see where you could end that road right at the north end of that, though. It'd be easy to tie into later then.
Yeah, there's some potential, but again, it's about finding the appropriate funding because making the case to either of those business owners that that road is necessary would be a really heavy lift. So, you know, just having that assessment as being good for them I think would be tough, so.
And, you know, I see in the future that L&M's gonna have to expand,
Yeah.
cause they're wall-to-wall packed stuff in there. So, I mean, it would infringe on whatever their plan would be for the future development of what they have, but I don't know if it would mean a new store or just adding on to what they have, but, yeah, they're bursting at the seams,
Some miles you can barely get a cart through.
yeah.
They're so full. Yeah, so.
I remember the first L&M Fleet store I went to in Bemidji when it was downtown. And there was aisles you couldn't get a cart down. It's like you stopped at the end of the aisle, went down and got what you wanted and came. I mean, it was stacked. I loved it.
Trivia, do you remember where the first fleet store was in
Yep,
town here?
yep, I do,
You?
yep.
Are you gonna tell us the answer?
Yeah, it's where the gas station is,
For T&M.
across from Northwoods.
Yep,
Huh?
in the liquor store right there.
Wasn't very big.
Yep, Fleet,
Pretty small
Farm and
property.
Fleet.
Yeah.
Cool. History. I love it.
Mr. Current used to manage that. Gary.
All righty. I guess we will move on, if we're ready, to 7B.
As you know, the Heartland Lakes Development Commission is working on a subdivision over by Walmart in the property that we own, just north of yours. And we have been successful in receiving a congressionally directed spending allocation that will cover the lion's share of that development. Unfortunately, we requested the money and based on the numbers that were available in '23 and '24, and prices have gone up. So we do have a deficit that we're trying to work through. The HLDC board has encouraged me to try and find sources to help bridge that gap so that we don't have to phase the construction, which would ultimately cause significant more pricing. So we are requesting the allocation of the statewide affordable housing aid that the county receives on an annual basis. That's the money that was provided legislatively and is awarded to each of the counties based on a formula with a base amount and then an inflator that is based on the number of households that are cost burdened. For '25, that number is 43,845, and for '26, it's 53,562, totaling $97,407. So it would help in being able to pull off that development. It has not been earmarked yet for any of the spending.
I'm assuming then that you project to be short more than 97,000?
We do, and what we've had discussions on is that the city of Park Rapids has some available resources that they can borrow to us. And so we will have to borrow the difference, and then add that on to the individual costs of the lots, because we will have to pay that back. But even so, they will still be affordable. So the city is coming to the table with resources that they can borrow.
Just 115% of the median income, so that'll be your targeted purchasers, but what is that median income for this area?
93,600 and something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So reaches pretty, in our audience, that's
Yeah,
kind of
it's
suitable for this
really,
area.
yeah, it's really our market. It's our niche. It's really the folks that we're looking to target for this housing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board's wishes?
Well, I'll make the motion to approve. It certainly goes along with what the board has been trying to do to offer affordable housing. Not the EDA board, I'm talking about the Board of Commissioners has targeted, we want to be involved in housing, support any way we can.
When you think you'll be able to get started on it?
The RFP is gonna be posted next week. It's already on Quasar or Quats something or other, which is the construction clearinghouse for RFPs. It was posted there yesterday. It will go in the paper next week. The bids are intended to be due or opened the third week in March and awarded the last week in March, with construction starting in April. Or ish, depending on weather. So, yeah.
You made a motion? Yeah,
I did.
I'll second.
Tom? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Let's see. 7C, rural housing supply and demand.
So, I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to hear any of the presentations or seeing any of the information that Ben Winchester has done. He's with U of M Extension, and he, in my opinion, is an amazing thought leader when it comes to using data to really think through what it's like to be rural. And I had just attended a seminar that they had done January 29th about rural housing supply and demand. And the other part of the presentation included the community director from Otter Tail County that has been doing a lot of the work. And I must say that that county is really one of the most similar to Hubbard County, but they are far and away a lot more ahead of the curve than a lot of the other counties in the state. And they've done some really interesting things. This agenda item is purely just for discussion because I thought it was interesting, but I think it does have some nuggets that we as an organization, we're still relatively fledgling in the new HRA-EDA. I think that we've finally gotten to a point where our financial stuff is, sort of wrapped up and under control. We have our audits done. And so now we can start thinking about what are the things that we want to pay attention to as an organization, and what are some of the activities that we might want to get involved in. And so I thought that this would be something that would be sort of interesting to just talk about some of the highlights. And then I did also pull some information on a couple of the slides that are specific to Hubbard County. The one that Ben included in his slide was Meeker County, and but Hubbard County I pulled, and some of it is more stark in how that goes. So I'm just gonna, kind of talk highly about a couple things, and really one of the things that's included is the narrative that people can't wait to leave rural, that's we just have this brain drain where everybody's really getting out of the community. And what they're really finding is that's true. However, when you get to be about in your 30s to 50s, the opposite becomes true, is that actually there's a higher percentage of people coming back to rural because they want the slower pace or they want a better place to raise families. And so those are really, the truth of the matter is that people do leave, and it's okay, but they do come back. And then how are we going to position ourselves to allow them to come back is really what this talks about. And the baby boomers that it talks about is that in the two slides that he has there, what he's showing is that in Meeker County, you can see that the highest bunch of homeowners between 2000 and 2010 were in 35 to 40 and 45 to 54. And then 10 years later, it's the same group, just one survey group further. So the same homeowners just shifted over, nothing really changed. It's the same people owning the houses. And in Hubbard County, it's not quite as stark, but one of the things that you'll notice, I think, that is really sort of telling is between the three graphs, notice that the number of units changes, so you can't, the height of the graph changes, but look at in 2020, the high degree of ownership in that 65 to 74-year-old group. The demographic there is well over 1,600 units of sort of that older population that really are homeowners in this county. And so there's a lot of folks that are shifting to that upper end that are still homeowners. And historically, there used to be kind of this, you'd buy this starter home and then you'd move to a little bit bigger home and then you'd move to a little bit bigger home and then you'd move somewhere else. And all along there was another group that was sort of going along, and that's called the housing continuum from a housing perspective, not a care perspective. And that has sort of halted. And a part of the issue is that previous generations are staying in their homes longer than prior generations. And so it's really keeping those houses under home ownership of the older adults in the communities a lot longer.
I thought about that on my personal level, where my father-in-law lived in the same house for over 60 years, died in his home, which I think I myself would like to die in my own house instead of somewhere else. But, and then I think about my parents, it's the same thing. Mom's living in a house that we bought when I was in second grade. So that was like 60 years ago. And it's kind of, and I think about myself then, the house I'm in, I've been in since, 1993. So this June, it'll be 33 years I've lived there.
Right. And that's really great. But as the data shows, that does create a challenge of its own.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. Number one is that a lot of times those houses don't get the care and maintenance that they need, and so they can deteriorate over time. And it also, a lot of times, could be one adult living in a 4-bedroom house that would wonderfully support a family with children. So there's, sort of this dilemma, and we all know the cost of construction right now. I mean, it's becoming unreachable for a lot of households to be able to build new. So one of the strategies may be, how do we keep what we have in a way that allows us to turn it over, or as Winchester calls it, move over housing. So the graph that he has on Meeker County data shows the percentage of owner-occupied homes by age. This is the one for Hubbard County, which is, wow. In 2020, the percentage of all owner-occupied homes owned by the two oldest demographics is 63%. So 63% of all of the homes owned by the two oldest demographics, so that's 55 and older, is 63% of those houses are owned by that demographic.
That's up from 48% in 2020.
Right. Yeah. So, again, it's, wow. I mean, it's just, Connie Carmichael with Living at Home talks a lot about how Hubbard County got a larger percentage of older adults than the state averages. So we have a high population of retired folks that live here. And again, this really does confirm that. It's really showing that a lot of the older adults are here and they're homeowners.
I'm kind of surprised at the renter occupied, when you look at those age brackets, how high the older population is in renting as well.
Yeah, so,
One thing that Hubbard County doesn't have that we've talked about is, because I know people that would like to leave the house they're in, but there's not a patio house to move to.
and a lot of folks don't want to go to assisted living. I'm not
Right.
assisted living. I don't want to go there.
Plus,
So-
you're not building up any equity when you
Right.
move to assisted living,
Right.
so.
Yeah. So it does also talk about the housing study that we had done in, 2 years ago now? And it did talk about the need for that patio home for the active adult or active senior, in that it's really tends to be the same market as some of the younger folks. So what the housing study suggested is, don't build specifically for the older adult, but build homes that would be attractive to them, so that there becomes an option, that there's.
That's what I noticed in Bemidji, just east of the hospital. There's quite a few, slab-on-grade homes. And my thought was, well, this is for retired people. Well, the number of people that I know that live there that aren't even old, it just was kind of surprising, but.
And they have a mix there of owner and renter, but yeah, there is a whole bunch of those. And that whole development was very successful, I think. A couple places back is, let's see, it's on slide 11, and it talks about what's the community cost or impact of dilapidated housing, and using just a tax value of $4,000 or a levy of $4,000, and there's 4 houses in the community. One of them is dilapidated, but while it's still there, it's getting charged its equal share of the levy burden, and then once that house is torn down, then that cost burden, the levy burden, distributes to everybody else instead. So there really is a cost to the community for losing the houses that we have available. And then this group also did a assessment in 2024 that they looked at what is the economic impact of households. And so on some of those slides, they talk about what is the induced benefit. So if you have a household that works here and they spend their money here and all of that turns and cycles, what happens on, and this is where that Otter Tail County work came into play. And here this slide shows about the multiplier effect, and what they're talking about is during the construction of new homes, these are the indirect impacts of having that additional resource in the community. But then it also talks about the indirect impacts of having that residence in the community and what really happens. And they went so far as pricing that out. And so on the next slide, they show that with an apartment building, if there's residents that have about $60,000 worth of income, the construction per unit is about $200,000. The one-time benefit, so that first half, is $297,000, and then the induced impact, so that economic churn that happens, is about $41,000 annually. You get to a single-family house, and that amount is about $97,000 annually. So every house can equate to an economic benefit for the community that it is in. So, 2 slides back, it says, okay, so then over the lifetime of that house, a single-family home with that household income provides about $7 million worth of economic activity over the 75-year life of that home. So there's real economic impact in housing and maintaining housing and allowing for a way of sort of churn. And so the new discussion really is what the private benefit of public action with regard to housing, and can homes be a community good, a public community good? And then I think how do you go about doing some of those kinds of things is how do we promote move over housing as discussed here, you know, a house that's sitting in estate issues for 3 years is really $95,000 for 3 years is a $285,000 impact, having a vacant home just sitting there while it's going through probate. So again, it's really talking about the economics of housing and not so much the social aspects of housing. And then there was a conversation about, you know, this strategy is move over housing, and it's a continuum of life more than a continuum of care. So it's really about aging in place doesn't necessarily have to mean aging in your house. It means aging in place in the community. So how can the community create options that are available that allows that move over decision to be done without an emergency, that's less stressful, that there's opportunities for that, and then the housing churn. So that's one of the strategies. The next page, I think, is really spoke to me about some of the things that, as an HRA and EDA, that you might think are some intriguing areas to think about. Pre-sale, figuring out how to provide pre-sale inspections for households that are over 55. So they have a really good sense about what condition their home is in, and you know, how could they potentially sell it. Offering community education classes so young homeowners have more capacity to fix up homes that might not be in quite the shape that they want to be. Creating a habitat for rehabilitation type initiative. So, instead of building your house, how do you figure out ways to rehab houses for incomes? And then, toolbox checkout service, or encouraging and developing a talent pipeline to do rehabilitation kinds of activities. This group has talked a lot about rehabilitation as being something that's important because it can really be a program that can have community-wide impact. And I think that this information provides a little bit better economic justification for the consideration of those kinds of programs, in that every home that you save and are able to help turn it over or move it over means that potentially younger households can move in, that the tax base stays in the community, and then we have more folks in our schools and, all of those things, and then we have that $95,000 indirect impact that continues to come into communities. So, again, it's really about community succession planning, housing succession, and making it okay to have those conversations is, I think, sort of the place to start. And then thinking about opportunities to really provide benefits so that we can have these conversations. And I don't think any one thing is going to be the solution. It's going to be a lot of things. So anyway, that's where I just found it incredibly intriguing and thought it might be worthwhile information that you might find valuable.
Thank you. That's one of those things, like when Shar was talking about responding to that email, this would be something too about rehabbing homes and stuff like that. I think high on the list, maybe not top of the list, but
When I've heard this presentation twice, actually, and very interesting. Thank you, Mary, for presenting it to the full board. The one thing I remember, they said, a senior having a place to move to, so they can move from something bigger or something they can no longer care for. Usually, if it's done right, it takes about 18 months by the time they find a place. A senior that stays in their home too long and then has to move under crisis is they're trying to get 18 months worth of things done in 2 weeks.
Good example of that is, Summerfield Place. That thing filled up right away. And the patio homes along there, they were like gone instantly. And they were generally, they weren't all, I remember when they first went up, there were some young people in there temporarily for a while too. But the older people didn't want to do all the lawn care and all that stuff in their homes, they moved there.
And they have a heated
And then their
indoor
homes were
garage
Yep.
underneath, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some conversations that you might find interesting about some of the transfer of wealth. That was just an aside that he put on there. We are fortunate in that Dee Dee Lemire, who also works at U of M Extension in the community economic development stuff, was able to provide us a transfer of wealth just for Hubbard County. So we have detailed information about what this transfer of wealth looks like. And basically what it is there's a lot of folks who have wealth that they don't think about, that as they age or, are going to look at how do they transfer that, and then how do you position a community to be able to take advantage of some of that. So when that transfer happens, that there's ways for the community to benefit in some of these interesting ways. One of the other things I'm just going to mention as an aside is that there's a group in the community in Park Rapids that's what do they call themselves? They're out of Calvary Church, the construction folks.
The hard hat?
Yeah, Hard Hat Ministry. Wouldn't it be interesting to find a way to activate that volunteer base countywide in such a way that we could use some resources that might be able to help folks with this volunteer base, and kind of like that Habitat for Humanity model, where you can go in and rehab some of these houses and be able to keep them more habitable, or be able to turn them so a senior would have somewhere to live. And so I think that there's some interesting things that we have some pieces, and that we might be able to find some ways to get some alignment and activate some things if that's an area that this organization thinks might be worthwhile. So,
Thank you. I think it would be worthwhile, personally.
that's all I had. So if you do have the opportunity to hear or you see Ben Winchester is going to do a presentation of any kind, I encourage you to put it on your schedule. He is incredibly intriguing and has done some really interesting work. And that's all I have on that item.
Alrighty, thank you. Next on the agenda is the director's report.
Quickly, just a couple of things. ICS has gone to all of the apartment buildings. They were there on the 4th of February. And they are going to be writing up our capital needs assessment. They'll start with Regency so that we can use as much of that information to include in a scope of work that we can use for the Small Cities program. As Rob mentioned, our audit is scheduled for 2025, so we'll be able to meet the county's deadline, which is a big deal. We have been amiss in that for a couple years, and so now we'll get back on that. One of the things that we mentioned, or that was mentioned, is that limited staffing. We thankfully have hired a new person who is going to be starting on March 2nd. And so with that, we'll be able to spread some of the duties and be able to have a little bit more internal control within our organization. And so I will look forward to having you meet her. Her name is Bree. And so I'm very much looking forward to everyone being able to meet her. And then finally, an action item, and again, this is just something you don't have to decide today, but just something to be thinking about, is that we found that there are on occasion purchases that we need to make electronically. And the HRA currently has no credit or debit cards, so it really becomes challenging. What we're doing is using our own HLDC card and then getting a reimbursement. And that's fine, but it probably would be more appropriate to have a small limit, $1,000 card that we would be able to use moving forward. And again, it's not something that you have to do today, but something to really think about, that it would make certain purchases a lot easier from an administrative standpoint.
Would you put that on next month's agenda? Because I think, I agree, I think it'd be convenient.
And I'd put 3, not 1.
Okay.
It's just every limit that we've had, we've bumped up over the last 3 years. So if you register for a conference in St. Paul and have 4 nights of housing, you're in excess of $1,000.
Okay.
So it goes quickly. The intent is to pay everything off every month anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. Okay. So yes, I will put that on the agenda if that's fine with you. So that's all I have.
Alrighty. Does anybody have anything else to bring forward here?
Do you want to go through any of those questions, or should Mary and I just do? It's getting late here, so.
If you don't mind, just.
Yep,
you
that's
guys-
fine.
Great, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, David.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned.